میشم یه جورایی مثل اینکه ناخودآگاه من میدونه از اینی که قراره که همون بازی‌های معتادگونه‌مو باهاش در بیارم که بتونم این مسئله رو ادامه بدم. Go for it. It's like, what did you talk about?
That was quite a lead-in.
Why should I go for it? Do you want to go to your next slide? So you
sure, yeah, we can do that. We can go to the next slide. What do we got there?
میتونیم بریم تو سلاید بعدی. مثل اینکه دارن اون سلاید بعدی رو به وجود میارن. So we were talking about, I think he's looking at creating the other slide.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
Oh yeah, so basically, it's a little hard to see, and this is just a diagram of the brain, and what we believe is that, so there's this old idea in psychology and in philosophy that and you know in art that everyone is divided into a true self and a false self. And so we sort of have like the false self is who kind of this veil that most of us cover ourselves to one extent or another, but it's not really who we are. It's who we believe we are, or who we think we need to be, what we need to present to the rest of the world to be okay, but it's not real. It's the false self, whereas the true self is the authentic self. And so what this diagram shows is that we believe that the false self, like our model provides this explanation for what the false self is and what creates it, and we think that it's all created by addiction. And so the false self is this neural net is created by this neural network in the brain that's composed of all of a person's all of your addictions and addictive patterns. And so in other words, if you identified anyone in the audience and you identified all of his or her addictions and addictive patterns, all of those patterns are connected together in the brain in this neural network, and that whole network as an aggregate, as a whole, is that person's false self.
یک قسمتی از شبکه‌های بخصوصی به وجود میاد در مغز که این شبکه‌های بخصوص در حقیقت کاری رو انجام میدن اینه که تمام رفتارهای مخرب، احساسات مخرب، افکار و باورهای مخرب رو توی دونه شبکه نگه میدارن و بعد سلامت و اونایی که سالم هست در یک فضای شبکه‌های دیگه‌ای هست. دکتر مونتگومری میگن که در حقیقت ما میتونیم که این نوع شبکه‌هایی رو که حالت بیمارگونه، معتادگونه، مخرب داره رو وقتی که پیدا میکنیم و میبینیم همه در یک جا هست، میتونیم که در یک شرایط دیگه فضای سالمش رو به وجود بیاریم، در حالی که آدم‌ها دو تیکه میشن. این قسمت درونی وجودشونه که مکررن در فضای تعادل میاد و یک قسمتیه که حالت مجازی داره که اون مجازی ها در حقیقت داره درست میشه به خاطر اینی که از یک شرایط رفتارهای مخرب داره به وجود میاد.
I have a feeling you're explaining things better than I am.
I'm not sure, but I'm sure the audience who knows English and Persian can be the ones who can actually tell us what's going on. I'm not a very good, verbatim translator because I came from Iran when I was 13. So therefore I've learned all of psychology world and my adulthood. I've learned it in English. Yeah. So trying to translate these words which I've learned in English and my field in English into Persian is very difficult for me. Right. So I kind of fumble around and try to do my best, but it's definitely not verbatim.
If I had gotten more psychology training in Farsi, I'd be
probably
speaking Farsi so well. But
Todd, are you still with us?
I am still here. Yeah.
Are you meditating while we're talking? I can feel the meditation from there. How would you like to add to the conversation that Dr. Montgomery was having? I don't know if I'm talking John and Todd or then I go to the last names. I'm just going to go with first names. Let's do it that way.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think it's such an important part of our model from a theoretical perspective, but also from a therapeutic perspective. We've had remarkable success in being able to not only talk about the false self, but then make people feel sort of less broken. We're so accustomed to labeling people and things in our culture, and I think when somebody gets labeled with some sort of diagnosis or a disease or whatever, somehow it can obviously there are advantages to diagnosing these problems, but somehow in a lot of cases it can also I think make a person feel more broken. And so what I like about our model when we say the false self is not really who you are. It's an aspect of really a persona or a part of an identity that in fact is the opposite of who you are. It is not you, or at least it's just a part of you. And so I think really we kind of put people at ease by saying that these things that you do are in fact things that you do, and they're driven by not only by particular belief systems or conditioning, but also, as John mentioned, by this associative neural network that sort of reinforces this whole story that we create about who we are. And if we can really realize that this is really just driven by a biochemical addictive process, that actually we have the ability to choose when we discover what it is, to put that down and ultimately really re-embrace who we are at a deeper level. I think this model gives people an opportunity to do that with less shame, with less judgment, and with less labels.
That is a great point. One thing that came up for me, though, which I wanted to share with both of you and our audience, is that I think there's this maybe fallacy about thinking that if something is neurochemical and if it's something biological, then therefore it cannot be changed. And this is really not what I hear from you. What I hear from you is actually the opposite, which is if I understand the biochemical aspect of it, and if I understand how my brain works, that actually when I shift the behavior and the thought patterns, that it not automatically, but within time and within practice, that it also changes the biochemistry of the brain.
Absolutely, yeah. No, this has been a theme in neuroscience especially over the past 5 or 10 years, that the brain is incredibly plastic. The brain it's amazing how much it can change just based on what you do. And really anything you do, and just by anything you think or do will affect your brain, will change your brain. The brain is always changing, it's always adapting. And so absolutely, the brain can undergo massive biochemical changes and massive neural network changes. And in fact, that's really the idea. The ultimate goal of this model is that we have a method that can change these neural networks, that can break down the neural networks that are dysfunctional, that cause all these painful, distressing behaviors, and we can reinforce the neural networks that underlie healthy behavior, that the behavior that brings us into homeostasis and connects us to ourselves and to the people we love and to spiritual things and creativity and this is again backed up by a lot of neuroscience. It's a very strong current in the research, the plasticity.
یکی از مسائل مهمی که دارن توضیح میدن به خاطر این مسئله است که وقتی که ما مغزمون یک سری رفتارها انجام میدیم که از کودکی اتفاق میفته و بعد شاید حواسمون نیست یا نمیدونیم، دانش این رو هنوز پیدا نکرده بودیم که ببینیم نه تنها این رفتارها، افکارها و احساسات به وجود میاد، بلکه با این شبکه رفتار و احساس و افکار یک مقدار مدل‌های به خصوص شیمیایی در مغز ما به وجود میاد که بعد از این مدت اون مسائل شیمیایی هست که درخواست میکنه، مثل VR میمونه، اونا درخواست میکنه که ما برگردیم و این رفتارها رو مکررن انجام بدیم. و چیزی رو که من پرسیدم اینه که ما همیشه شاید عادت کردیم که فکر میکنیم اگر یه چیزی جسمانی فیزیکیه و توی مغزمون هست پس هیچ وقت دیگه نمیشه تغییرش داد، پس اون همونه که هست باهاش به وجود اومدیم، در حالی که هر دو چارلز و جان میگفتن که علم نوروساینس، علوم شبکه عصبی در حقیقت این رو ثابت کرده که انقدر مغز ما اون فضای نرمش رو داره که وقتی که ما رفتارمون و افکارمون رو تغییر میدیم در کنار اون هم بیوشیمی مغزمون رو رسما تغییر میدیم و بعد وقتی بیوشیمی مغز رو تغییر دادیم یواش یواش این رفتارهای سالم هست که جزوی از وجود ما میشه و اونها رو جلو میبریم. بخوایم سلاید بعدی رو استفاده بکنیم. We're going to bring the next slide so that we could talk about that.
Oh well, this is just a slide of the reward system in the brain. So this is the main area. Like if you see, the names aren't really important, but you see that little nucleus accumbens. It's a little almond-shaped structure there, and that's sort of the core of the reward system. And the important point is that it's buried very deep in the brain, in this very primitive region of the brain. And so, and it's this region of the brain that we're largely unconscious of. So any activity in that part of the brain, we generally never become conscious of. And this is really the key point, is that the real driving force of so much of our behavior is in this part of the brain that we never become conscious of this activity. And in fact, the vast majority of what happens